Resident Evil Requiem is almost an upgrade of Resident Evil 2 style of horror and gameplay. So I wanted to go ahead and do a video on this just because, with Resident Evil Requiem coming out, I do want to kind of stay up a little bit up to date and with more of the information and everything like that in regards to what's going to be happening with that game as far as the story mode and the gameplay and everything like that. So hearing this information I actually thought was actually pretty cool, especially because I really enjoyed Resident Evil 2 remake. Out of all the remakes that we've gotten so far, 2, 3, um 4. I feel like Resident Evil 2 is my favorite out of all of them. It's the one that I enjoyed playing the most. It's one of those ones I can go back and replay and just have a great time every time I play it. And I feel like just the story behind it is so good. So seeing that they are kind of going towards Resident Evil 2 in regards to them mentioning that they feel like it's an upgrade, I feel like that's awesome because I very much enjoyed Resident Evil 2, and it's one of those games that just always puts a smile on my face whenever I'm able to play it because of how much I just loved Resident Evil 2 original, how much I enjoyed playing remake, and then just kind of where I was at in life when it came down to remake getting released. Just being able to kind of look back and everything like that, and just really get that fondness and that nostalgic feeling when it comes down to the game. So seeing that that is the case when it comes down to them doing this, it does have me a little bit hyped and pretty excited to see what's gonna be happening with it. So we'll go ahead and go over this article here, and I'll go ahead and give my thoughts as I go along. So, Resident Evil Requiem director has revealed that the upcoming title can be considered almost an upgrade to Resident Evil 2's style of horror and gameplay. Capcom's ninth installment in the Resident Evil series is set to arrive on February 27th, 2025. I think they messed up on that. It's supposed to be February 27th, 2026. And we have received a wealth of information about the upcoming title through the interviews with the developers recently. The devs commented on the numerous leaks surrounding the upcoming title, and now we have been told that Requiem leans more towards Resident Evil 2 than Resident Evil 4. And that is one of the things I'm kind of looking forward to, is the fact that it is going to be more towards Resident Evil 2 in that regard when it comes down to the remakes. Just because Resident Evil 4, it didn't really have that kind of horror aspect to it. When I think of Resident Evil 4 original, I feel like there was a bit of creepiness to it and something that was kind of like an eeriness to it. But when it came down to the remake, I feel like it was just more so in like an action sense, an action game than more of a horror type of game. And I've mentioned it on some other videos in the past and everything like that. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I'm not the biggest fan of Resident Evil 4 remake. There's a lot of things, issues and stuff like that that I have with it, especially considering that Resident Evil 4 original is one of my favorite games of all time. I love that game so much. So kind of seeing that the direction that they decided to go in with the remake, there was a lot of issues I had with it and a lot of things that I kind of wish they would have done differently. But yeah, that's a video for another time. I am kind of considering kind of doing like a breakdown of it on why I feel the way I feel about Resident Evil 4. I've been wanting to do that ever since the game came out and I played it and beat it through. And yeah, now that I actually have like this channel where I can do stuff like that, I very much am considering kind of taking the time to kind of make that a possibility and make that happen, because I feel like it would be a video that I would have to really break down and everything like that. So Resident Evil Requiem leading towards Resident Evil 2 was always their intention. The director of Resident Evil 2 Requiem, Koshi Nakanishi, spoke about taking inspiration from Resident Evil 2 during a new interview with IGN. Nakanishi first explained how players can broadly classify Resident Evil titles on a scale of how much they like Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 4. He said that Resident Evil 7 leans more towards Resident Evil 2 thanks to the return of survival horror roots, and Resident Evil Village is more towards Resident Evil 4 side of things thanks to the action and gameplay. And I very much agree with that. You know what I mean? I feel like that is a good way to look at it because of the fact that, yeah, Resident Evil 7, like I remember, yeah, a lot of people mentioning that they did like the fact that it did lean kind of more towards the horror and kind of what the game was rooted in, kind of a thing. While Resident Evil Village, yeah, it definitely did feel like it was more action based and you're kind of going around, going after these different monsters and everything like that. But you're more so kind of going in guns blazing as opposed to being scared of what's going to be happening, kind of a thing. So When the developers kept heading in the direction of adding more and more action to outdo the previous title, they ended up with games like Resident Evil 5 and 6, which were good. Still, the consensus was that the series was pushed so far in the action direction that it was no longer horror. And that's one of the things I loved Resident Evil 4 original. I thought it was really good. Resident Evil 5, I actually didn't play that one till later on, just because the PS3 era and Xbox 360 was kind of an era that I pretty much missed out on. So that was one of those games that I wasn't able to actually play until years later. I think it was like 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, that I actually went back and played Resident Evil 5, and it was okay. You know what I mean? It's a bit dated. You know what I mean? So there was that aspect of it, as well as the fact that the AI was a little bit weird, having a co-op kind of a thing. I feel like if I were to play it with a friend, someone that I can actually do the whole story mode with, and where I can either be Chris and they can be Sheva, or the other way around, I could be Sheva and they can be Chris. I would probably look at it a little bit differently. And Resident Evil 6, I actually have Resident Evil 6, but I've never played it. I've heard a lot of negative things. I've heard it goes all over the place. I heard it's a really long game, and it just doesn't seem like something I want to play. I mean, obviously, I got to go back and play it just because I am a Resident Evil fan, so I do feel like I have to go back and kind of do the whole series kind of a thing. But yeah, the Resident Evil 6, just I've heard a lot of people mention how it leans so much into like the action. There were some horror aspects of it, but like for the most part, it was an action type of game, and it just didn't really seem to grab my interest in that regard. So yeah. So the director didn't want to pursue the same treatment with Resident Evil 9, where they had tried to outdo the action in Village. Instead, they intended to always firmly swing the scale towards the Resident Evil 2 style, which makes Requiem almost an upgrade of Resident Evil 2 style. And that is really cool to hear, especially considering that, you know what I mean, they have shown some of the gameplay and everything like that, and the direction that they're kind of going in. I am kind of hoping that, from what it looks like, and it does seem like it is going to be the case, where the main chick that you're going to be kind of running from and everything like that, it is going to be Lisa Trevor, which it really, I think, is so cool, because that is a callback to Resident Evil 1 or remake, really puts a smile on my face, because of the fact that I love that game so much. Out of all the Resident Evil games other than Resident Evil 4, I think Resident Evil remake for the GameCube was probably the one that I played the most. I've played that game so many times. I've unlocked the Infinite Rocket Launcher multiple times, and it's just one of those games I love so much. I just love playing it. It's so fun, and it's one that I have no issues being able to go back and kind of just play it, kind of a thing. And I am kind of hoping that maybe one of these days I can kind of stream it on on this channel and kind of see how that goes. So, Resident Evil Requiem devs don't know what's scary anymore and almost cut off Grace's legs, which is really weird to say. So, later in the interviews, Nakenashi spoke about how they had created so many horror games that they can't tell if they're scary until somebody else plays it. The team was almost concerned that the game might not be horrifying enough for the hands off experience at SGF and the hands on experience at Gamescom. When asked if anything was cut from the game for being too scary, the director explained that they didn't really implement it, so it wasn't cut. At one point, they were like, what if Grace gets a big gash in her leg, or her leg gets cut off? Because that thing attacks her, and oh my god, it's so scary, but we talked ourselves down a little bit. And yeah, that is one of the things I feel like you kind of probably don't want to go in that direction, just because of the fact that, you know what I mean, it is the main protagonist. She is going to have to be going around, and if you cut her legs off, that's kind of, it's even if they survive something like that, it's kind of like, all right, how are they supposed to get through to the rest of the game, kind of a thing. And in that aspect, it gets a little bit too unrealistic. I mean, obviously, we're playing a game about zombies and stuff like that, but you do want to kind of have that feeling of like, if this did happen in my world, or I was put in this type of situation, what would I do? And if you get your legs cut off, it's almost like that's a game over for me, or you know what I mean, kind of in that sense. So I feel like the fact that they were able to kind of talk themselves out of it, I feel like was probably for the better, kind of a direction, you know. So, talking about scary, Resident Evil Requiem's new horror system will play with your emotions. Additionally, Fantastic Four Star has joined the live action Resident Evil movie cast. What are your thoughts on Resident Evil Requiem leaning towards Resident Evil 2? Let us know through the official Insider Gaming Forums discussion. So, yeah, as far as the movie goes, I'm not. We could talk about that later. I'm not really focused on that right now. But when it comes down to the game itself, I am really interested in the direction that they're going to be going with. You know what I mean? With the fact that they have it so that you can change from third person to first person, I feel like that is pretty cool because of the fact that you can kind of get the best of both worlds from the previous games. You know, me personally, I've mentioned it before. I'm a person that gets motion sickness and everything like that. So playing a game in first person isn't necessarily a draw for me. It's kind of a hit or miss. Sometimes I'll be down to play it. Sometimes I prefer not to. When it comes down to Resident Evil, I lean more towards the third person. I actually like that a lot more in regards to playing, just because being able to go in that way when it came down to like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 4, and even though I didn't like it, Resident Evil 3, being able to have that third person perspective is a little bit better for me than doing the first person. And even when I played like some of Seven and then Village, it's one of those things where I'm not the biggest fan of first person. When I seen that they had changed it to first person, it kind of soured the franchise for me a little bit, because I was like, oh, I don't want to play in first person. But as time's progressed, I've learned to kind of lean. It's kind of grown on me a little bit. But if I have the option between the two, I would definitely say I'm going in third person. So having things like that and the fact that they're trying to lean more into the horror aspect of the game is something I'm really excited about and I'm really looking forward to. Now, the only thing after that, obviously, with after the gameplay and stuff like that, would be the story. And who knows the direction it's going to go in. Resident Evil is known for having kind of like B movie, kind of like B horror storylines and stuff like that. So I'm not expecting like the greatest story ever when it comes down to what they're going to be doing when it comes down to the next Resident Evil game. But I do have a feeling that it is going to be something that is going to be worthwhile and be satisfying for fans, fans of the franchise that have been playing for years, and fans, and something that can be satisfying for people who haven't been fans, you know what I mean? Who maybe want to just check out this game because of the hype that's been put around it and everything, and just decide, I want to try this game even though it's the ninth one in the series. Just give it a shot. And you know what I mean? Hopefully it can be a storyline that they can agree with and they can end up liking at the end of the day when they're done, when they finally beat it. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm really looking forward to this, and I'm really hoping that this game is going to be good. And I have a feeling it will be, but obviously you can only wait. Time will tell in that regard. But I'm looking forward to this, and I'm really excited to see what they're going to come out with at Capcom. You know what I mean, for this game, because Resident Evil, I think, is probably my second favorite franchise of all time. I think Legend of Zelda is my first. But yeah, I really do love this franchise and I do want to see it do well. So I am looking forward to what's going to be coming when it comes down to this game in February. So yeah, I'm excited, man. I'm really excited when it comes down to this. So those are my thoughts on that. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section. Are you guys looking forward to Resident Evil Requiem when it does come out? And are you guys glad that they're going sticking more to like the horror aspect and going in that direction when it comes down to this game? Because obviously that's where Resident Evil started out and was horror, and being able to have it so that they're trying to stick to their roots and kind of go back in that direction after so many changes that it's gone through over the years. I am excited for that, and I'm looking forward to what we're going to be getting when it comes down to the next game. So yeah, so if you guys can let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments, if you guys could like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you guys have been watching this long, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. And yeah, until next time, Harmonic out. Peace.